Logo, Chaffee College, Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art Home Edition. The outline of the house appears around the title. Artist Talk. Rebecca Ustrell, Curious Publishing. September 30th, 2020 from 3 to 4 p.m. Rebecca Trawick sits in an office, a bookcase and filing cabinet covered in photos and stickers behind her.
Hi everybody, thank you for joining us at today's program, presented as part of the Wignall Museum's Home Edition, a series of curated artist talks, workshops, and discussions featuring artists and cultural workers. My name is Rebecca Trawick. I'm the director and curator of the Wignall Museum. The Wignall Museum is a teaching museum and interdisciplinary art space that introduces Chaffee College students, faculty, staff, and community members to innovative contemporary art objects and ideas. By fostering critical thinking, visual literacy, discourse, and empathy, the museum seeks to enhance the intellectual and cultural life of our community. We want to take a moment to recognize that we are situated on the Rancho Cucamonga campus of Chaffee College, which resides on the traditional and unceded lands of the Tongva people. We offer our respect to the elders, both past, present, and future.
And hello, my name is Roman Stollenwerk. I'm the assistant curator at the Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art. Please visit our website, www.chaffee.edu/Wignall, Wignall. Please write your questions for the presenter using the chat function. We'll be reviewing the chat function throughout the presentation, and at the end, we'll answer the questions as time allows. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Andy Hadel. I'm the preparator at the museum. And alongside Rebecca and Roman today, I'm going to be helping with the presentation. So just a real quick breakdown of the program's events. In a moment, Rebecca Ustrell is going to present for about 30 minutes. And then with the remaining time, we'll use that available time for question and answer.
Great, so I'll start by introducing Rebecca and then she'll take it away. So Rebecca Ustrell is the founder and editor-in-chief of Curious Publishing. Curious Publishing was established to promote and nurture the underrepresented and underserviced talents of the Inland Empire, Los Angeles, and Greater Southern California. Through her experience in coordinating the Claremont Art Walk pop-up gallery from 2016 to 2018, she decided to highlight the many talents in her first indie publication, Curious Magazine, in September 2018. Since then, Curious has published a new edition of Curious every quarter with a new theme each issue, focusing on topics of social justice, aesthetics, and beyond. In addition to Curious Magazine, Curious Publishing also publishes a biannual lifestyle and cultural journal entitled Abim. Curious also acts as a consultant and publisher for independent artist publications for artists throughout Southern California. Ustrell's movement in the arts extends through several collaborations in the Inland Empire. She sits on the board of the Artlands, as well as serves as volunteer special events coordinator for the arts area. These projects are all in addition to her solo career as a visual artist and creative writer. It is our honor to welcome Rebecca Ustrell today, so please join me in welcoming her.
Rebecca Ustrell wears a denim jacket, and behind her is a white door and a large window with white vertical blinds drawn shut.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm really happy to be presenting today. I've been a student at Chaffee off and on for quite a while now. I've been living on my own since after high school and been building my career in publishing as an independent artist and still working towards a degree. So it feels really good to be presenting to my peers and just all around interested folks for the company. So I'm excited to present to you today. Whenever you want to start the presentation, Roman, thank you.
A split screen. On the left is the text, Rebecca Ustrell, artist. RebeccaUstrell.com. Founder and editor-in-chief at Curious Publishing. The right side of the screen is a brightly colored painting. A bare-chested woman with long wavy dark hair and arched eyebrows is surrounded by large round yellow flowers. Caterpillars, leaves and smaller pink and purple flowers fill the background, except for a small portion of blue sky and clouds that peeks in between the flowers. A brown furry rabbit suckles at her breast.
Okay, so over on the right is a self-portrait that I did a year back. In addition to being the founder and editor-in-chief of Curious Publishing, I am also an illustrator and a short story and poet writer. that kind of is what, of course, gave my initial interest in the arts in general, but also I've been collecting art publications since as far back as I can remember. If you're interested after the presentation, since it will focus mainly on my publishing company, you can go to my personal website, RebeccaUstrell.com, to see some of my solo work and upcoming projects and updates on there. Next slide.
A photo of Rebecca wearing dark-rimmed glasses and dangling earring. Her long dark wavy hair falls past her shoulders. She wears a white dress and holds tarot cards. Another set of arms wearing long white sleeves are on each side, also holding cards, making it appear at first glance that she has 4 arms.
As I said before, and as they introduced me as, I have been an art show curator for a few years now. My background in that started in Claremont initially with the Claremont Village Marketing Group doing their pop-up gallery, which happened monthly on the first Saturdays. So my first experience with meeting a high volume of artists at once and also representing them was in that capacity. After my volunteer period of time was up, I started volunteering with the arts area and developing their pop-up gallery, which was quarterly rather than monthly. So we did that up until COVID, of course, since that was an in-person event, and we haven't resumed that quite yet. And that was just a small part of the greater art walks that take place in Claremont and Ontario. So in that role, that's where I initially met a lot of the artists that I actually still work with today. Prior to that, I did have nonprofit sector experience in fundraising, and I worked with foster youth all over the Inland Empire. And my main job there was cultivating donors, doing a little bit of grant writing, and also just coordinating little events here and there for fundraising purposes. So the nonprofit aspect of my company really stems from me having a good understanding of how a nonprofit works, having a company that is geared more towards community rather than the bottom line profit was really important to me and always has been in my career experience. So that's where that experience comes from. My personal work, there's actually a photo over to the right. It's a promo photo for this tarot deck that I'm working on. It's called the Social Justice Tarot Deck. Kind of in the bottom area, you'll see a couple of illustrations that are based on the original Rider tarot deck. So that's what that is. There's more information about that on my website. And other than that art project that I'm working on, my artwork does heavily focus on human sexuality and societal trends. My major is actually in sociology, so that's where that kind of ties in with my interest of trending groups, kind of studying groups and what their interests are and how that all affects a society in general. I'm also a commissioned illustrator. I have experience in being a private tutor. So I've worked with students in the Claremont community as a private tutor at their home for drawing. And of course, my main focus right now at this point in my career is being the editor-in-chief of Curious Publishing. Next slide.
Black text on a blurred rainbow background. Curious Publishing. The nonprofit artwork publishing company based in Upland, California, USA, established 2017. 100% artist-owned and operated. CuriousPublishing.org.
So Curious Publishing is a nonprofit art book publishing company, meaning we have our titles that are called Curious, but we also publish many other art books from solo artists, and also our we have new titles that roll in year round, and we work on those project proposals with the artists directly. We're based in Upland, California right now, but since it is an online company and I do move around, we were previously based in Pomona. So that's where we grew most of our following, was out of Pomona. Although we do serve the greater Inland Empire first before we branch out into other zones. We're 100% artist owned and operated. And there's the website curiouspublishing.org for your future reference to see the goings on of our company.
100% artist owned and operated.
Here's a introduction. Of course, I would have loved to have them here in the room with me to introduce themselves, but our staff is 100% volunteer based. And actually we have a couple of current and former Chafee students that are on our editing staff. So there's myself, who is currently taking classes on and off at Chafee, and I act as the editor-in-chief, which means that I curate the overall themes and make those final decisions before going to print. I also act as the designer for a lot of our publications. Eduardo Galvez, who's currently at Cal State Long Beach, he is starting special initiative projects under our publishing company. And Nicholas, who I believe is actually on in our meeting right now. So thanks, Nick, for attending and watching this. He's our lead designer. He designs the little aspects of our publication, like digital illustrations, layout ideas, and all of our merch. Haley is a freelance artist, and she's our photographer. Jessica Spindler is a current art history student. I believe she still is at Chafee. I'm not sure about this coming semester. And then Brianna, who is a friend of Eduardo at Cal State Long Beach. She's our brand new assistant editor. She's our first regularly paid employee, which is a huge milestone for our company, since we recently got the following capital to start paying out our staff.
Curious Magazine, ABME Magazine, in the art books.
So our biggest titles would be Curious Magazine, that's quarterly. Today is actually the launch of the women's issue, so that just got published online. It's our biggest issue yet. We actually had, I want to say, 116 submissions, which is about double, I want to say almost triple, a little over double the amount of submissions we usually get. So that was extremely exciting for me to see all of the submissions come in. And we published our largest volume. It's a 250-page volume book. So you typically, our books would be around, I want to say 90 pages, 90 to 120 pages. So this is significantly larger. And yeah, that was really exciting. So take a look for that release, which is available online right now, and also in print. That's going to ship out next week. And Abby Magazine, that was a title that was actually in print in Pomona, and I met the person that started that magazine. She actually was also a Chafee student, and she just stopped, simply stopped printing the magazine, and I was really interested in keeping up that lifestyle magazine, and I thought it would be a great way of highlighting things that don't necessarily fit into the themes of Curious. So Abbeam is biannual, and this upcoming issue is coming out in October. And our indie art books would be the projects that we work with independent artists, say a photographer or a poet that wants to print a chapbook that has some artistic elements in it. A lot of people are really into DIY right now and publish their own art books, but another way that we help indie artists, if they don't need that layout assistance, is we front the cost of the printing and work with our own printers who can give us a lower cost to get their projects to fruition, or if they just simply want our help with getting distribution out there, that's also something we specialize in. The Curious Magazine is where we have focused a lot on the trends that are going on in society, big movements, identity, empowerment, and gender. That's what we focus on for all of our issues.
A painting titled Midsummer of 5 acrobats dressed in white with red and blue accents under a sun with a face and beams that extend the width of the painting. One acrobat bends all the way back, head between thighs, their hands at their calves. Another is held over the head of a person who has an acrobat wrapped around their waist, and another with her leg hooked around the person's knee.
This was a recent initiative that I thought was really important, just with the changing climate politically and all the protests. It just seemed irresponsible to not focus on something that is really, happening out there, something that artists obviously are in touch with, something that I wanted to get artists' perspective on movements going on. So that's kind of why we decided to do our Latinx issue in March. And then after that, we had our queer issue. And then this is the women's issue that came out today. And our next issue will be all focused on BIPOC. So we're really excited about that too. Here's some examples of our past covers. We haven't always focused on social justice issues and identity empowerment. We do the occasional aesthetic-based issue. The pink issue was actually something that we did with our debut issue, which is we focused on the millennial pink color trend.
Pink flowers in front of a pink background. Curious is in white at the top.
So that was our anniversary issue on millennial pink. Over to the right in the back area is the psychedelia cover. So we did all psychedelic themed art.
Brightly colored paint splashes and patterns.
And then over to the bottom, you see the women's edition.
The cover with acrobats previously described.
And then over to the right is Latinx.
A black and white cross-hatched portrait of a person with long hair, a floral shawl draped over one shoulder. A circle with radiating lines like a halo is behind the figure's head.
The cover done by Pavel, who's also a former Chaffey student and permanent muralist at the Chaffey campus. So he's a good friend of mine now, thanks to that issue. I got the chance to meet with him. And we have our schedule of submissions, which exists on our website for open submissions year-round for titles such as these.
Text, 120 features.
So we feature approximately 120 artists per year. Well, we've only been operating for just over 2 years, so this figure is going to change, and I believe that it's going to grow exponentially just from what we've seen in our submission rate and our capacity to print, of course. That's about 30 artists per issue.
Submissions open year-round.
So again, submissions are year-round. We take open submissions from anywhere all over the globe, but we do make sure that the magazine has at least 75% Inland Empire-based artists, since that is our mission.
The red cover of ABME from October 2020. In the center is a black and white photo of hundreds of marchers at a protest.
Here's Abbey magazine. As I mentioned before, it's our biannual lifestyle art and culture magazine. This hasn't debuted yet, this new issue. We've actually only had one issue in print so far. It's our newest self-titled magazine. The cover on this is during the Black Lives Matter protests. I believe this photo was taken in Los Angeles, but the photographer Julian Lucas, who's based out of Pomona, took photos at protests all across the Inland Empire as well. So that magazine will feature things such as that. We do also do a one-off special interest art books with small groups and create compilation art books on various topics.
Text, special interest art books. Working with small groups to create compilation art books on various topics. On the left is a cover with white text, Chaffey College Student Invitational, Then and Now. The background is a photo of a pair of brown feet over a lime green background. On the right is another cover that is white with black text, Pandemic. Above the title is a pen and ink drawing of a collage of people wearing masks, one a beaked plague doctor mask. Flowers and fences run between them, connecting them. A small house sits among them.
During quarantine, I decided to do a pandemic issue. So this is really similar to Curious Magazine in that it's a compilation zine focused on a theme, but it was a little different. It released between a couple of our Curious magazines. And then it was really exciting to work with Chaffey College, the Wignall, working with Rebecca and getting the Student Invitational edition out there. It was something that it was experimental because I hadn't done a book with another organization or big group of artists that weren't directly connected to me. But as an active Chaffey student, I thought it was really important to see what the perspectives of art have been over time. And doing that publication was just awesome. I mean, we featured artists historically. I think the oldest submission that was in there was from I want to say the early 80s. So we included some pictures of old magazine articles based on the artist that was in there and their work, all the way up until current student invitational artists. And this is something that we hope to do in the future as well. I want this to be a repeating publication. And we did actually sell out of that issue at 100 copies. So that was exciting.
Text, getting artists paid. It is our mission to provide paid opportunities to underrepresented artists residing throughout the Inland Empire.
Right now, since we have gained quite a following and a little extra capital, which is really exciting for a business that started with $0 and just an idea, it's our absolute mission to start getting artists paid. So we want to start providing more paid opportunities for artists that are in our network. Our first initiative, of course, was with the art books, which has been extremely successful, but we're also open to suggestions and collaboration that do get artists paid.
Art books.
Here are some art books that we've published over to the right.
4 covers.
We do everything from people that paint, people that are collage artists, people that are a hybrid of the two. Today, we also debuted Gina's book, The Heart of Me, which was a hybrid chapbook and photography experiment with some prints that actually came in the book. So we're open to not only just art books, but books that maybe are a hybrid of the two. Anything that fits within the art world, which is pretty expansive, as you know. We offer free design and layout services to artists that can't do that on their own. And we do pay out commissions on a monthly basis based on books sold. So our model is you give us your idea, we design it if you need that help designing it, and we get it printed and out there into your fans' hands and pay you for it. So that's really was my goal in the beginning, was to help people make their book ideas come to fruition, and in any way that we can. And that's how we utilize our volunteer staff as well. And then if some of our books require some special design layout, I'll ask our designer Nicholas for some tips on that. If it needs extra elements that are maybe handmade, we also offer those services too.
An arrow curved upward, $3,000.
So far this year, well, within the last year, we've paid out $3,000 in artist book commissions, which I think is just like amazing to look at. Again, as a company that started with nothing, I truly believe that there's demand for artists to want to get their work out there, and what better way than creating a mobile gallery, if you will, especially since we can't have as many in-person events. This is an excellent way for artists to get their work in the hands of people all over the world, really. Here's a photo of some examples of the handmade elements that we do offer. So for this zine, it's called Frown. It's by Izzy Valle, who's out of San Bernardino, and he had a vision for his reprint of his zine that he had with us, that there would be some handmade elements. So we found an artist and commissioned the block print, and had the artist actually block print the cover of the book onto these individual envelopes. And we found a handmade envelope that fit exactly the size of the prints that were going to be made, and we hand assembled those. So we don't only do the mass-produced perfect bound books, we also do offbeat things like print scenes with handmade elements as well.
A yellow t-shirt with line drawings of a woman.
In addition to the book services, we also will create merch with local printmakers, screen printers, embroiderers, anyone in our network that we know is a small business and can get part of our project realized. We'll definitely reach out to those people and make the launch of the book even that much more special.
Text. Paid internships. A graphic of a black and white cat over a rainbow background. A banner below reads "Stay Curious."
So we do have paid internships available through Curious. Right now we have a paid photography internship. This gives people the opportunity to shoot new content for upcoming issues. We have product photography opportunities, and even journalistic type of opportunities for freelance writers. We also have a paid assistant internship for Curious Magazine for editing. So you can, this is the biggest challenge in the company right now, since it's such a small, I want to say small business, but really it's a tiny business, is managing our expectations properly, and being able to handle the volume of editing that can come up on a quarterly basis, and making sure that everything looks squared away and perfect for the artist, so that it's really on that professional level that we strive for. So we do have different opportunities for people to actually get paid and also be involved with Curious, and those always go up on our website.
Launch events.
So of course, pre-COVID, pre-quarantine, we had launch events, which is how we initially would rely on our income. Is we would do these pop-up vendor events, and we would do a pre-sale model, which would pay for the event itself. So hopefully soon. Don't want to jump the gun on that one. Our biggest highlight to date was our Latinx launch at the RAM in March. So that was the Riverside Art Museum. We had over 500 in attendance. In addition to our launch, they also had their just regular museum hours open and a couple of live performances, which did help with the attendance, but it was excellent. We had, I want to say 20 vendors. We have often live performances. We have opportunities for assisting in event planning. So we do have a coordinator internship that is available for in-person events. And we use these events to, bring all the artists together that are in the publication and really celebrate the launch of the book event. We do these big scale events, but we've also done really small scale book signings as well. Pretty much anything that fits the particular publication will partner with local businesses to make that come to light.
Panel discussions. A photo of a 5-person panel.
The cool thing about in-person events and collaboration is you have the opportunity to do collaborations. This was an excellent collaboration that we had the opportunity to have with the Latinx event at the Riverside Art Museum. The arts area, which is our fiscal sponsor company, decided that it would probably be an excellent opportunity to host a panel discussion based on the topic that was concurrent with Curious Magazine. Here's a photo of the panelists from that discussion. So it brought in that more educational element that we do hope to incorporate more in the future. And it just brings a different, diverse audience that may not have just seen the magazine in the first place. So that was an awesome opportunity. I believe that we sold out of that panel discussion event too, and it was hosted in their largest room. So that was a surprising, eye-opening, and exciting collaboration that we did. And we're definitely planning to do more in the future whenever we can do in-person discussions.
Zine fests.
Here's some photos from the Zine Fest hosted at Chaffey College, which was awesome. I think that this happened literally right before lockdown, which it was like on the verge of not happening. And then all of a sudden there was nothing. So I was happy that we were able to do it. So this was Zine Fest at Chaffey College. We do participate in a lot of Zine Fests. We host the biannual 5th Street Zine Fest. This is brand new, part of Redlands Art Walk, and we've actually only done one. The next one was supposed to be last spring, and there was supposed to be one next month, but since this whole year has been kind of blacked out for events, it hasn't happened again. But for the 5th Street Zine Fest, we basically close down 5th Street during the art walk and have vendor events. Different zinesters show. We've participated in IE Zine Fest, LA Independent Art Book Fair, the Claremont Zine Fest, which is hosted by Pitzer College, and the Pomona Zine Fest as well, which is an independentment run Zine Fest.
Virtual events.
So since we have switched to virtual, we're definitely keeping up with the movement to all online. When we have the opportunity to, we do live broadcasts on Instagram, talking to artists and discussing their released art books or discussing just topics in general in the art world. We always do these over Instagram. So if you're not following our Instagram and you are on Instagram, just at Curious Publishing, and we'll always post upcoming events that will be happening virtually, happening different times of day to kind of suit different audiences as well. Even though we had to switch to all virtual events, it surprisingly has not affected our sales reach at all or our audience reach. On average, we sell about 100 issues per magazine, and that hasn't changed even though everything switched to virtual, which was really surprising to me. I really always thought that in person was why we were reaching so many people, so that surprisingly is going well. We actually sold out of the first edition of the women's issue before it was even out and had to reprint a second edition, so that's going well, which is awesome. So thanks for your support.
Stay updated. Instagram at Curious Publishing. Facebook.com/Curious Publishing. CuriousPublishing.org. Rebecca.Ustrell at CuriousPublishing.org.
So these are ways that you can stay updated with Curious Publishing. We're extremely active on our Instagram. Next, I would say would be our website, Facebook as well. Or if you just want to email me directly, basically working from my phone when I'm not working my day job constantly. So I'm happy to answer any of your questions or keep you updated on things going on with Curious.
Rebecca Trawick.
Excellent. Thank you, Rebecca. That was really wonderful. So I think at this point we'll move to questions. So as Roman mentioned, those of you who are in attendance, if you have questions, please do feel free either to ask them. You can raise your hand, unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can type it into the chat and either Andy or I will read it for you. And I think we also have a few questions already. Andy, if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, hi, Rebecca, thank you. That was really incredible work that you're doing with Curious Publishing. I mean, just everyone, all artists and small businesses in the Inland Empire, it's really incredible. And you did it from the ground up, which is really, really, really great. So my question kind of follows that. I'm thinking, do you have any advice for young artists who are trying to find their way in the art market, or just finding their place in, in the art world just in general?
Sure. I think first I'd say is to really try and not be afraid to put your real self out there, and just trust that there is a ton of people that will be like-minded, and even if they're not like-minded, will be really into your mind. Will want to know why you create what you're creating. I do highly recommend moving to smaller versions of displaying work, such as a zine or a postcard, or Instagram works, of course, but that physical element I think is really important still. And just finding economical, affordable ways to get yourself out there. I, of course, had some background in event planning and worked in the nonprofit sector for a little while, so it kind of flowed into, I guess, my confidence in thinking that I could do it. But it really just stemmed from me just in my head knowing, well, if I love this so much, then there's got to be people out there that want to know about it too. Because of course, when I started a company that was print-based, I got a lot of eyebrow raises. Like, well, why the hell are you doing a print magazine when even some of the biggest magazines have transitioned online? And I think the answer simply is that, yeah, it's a magazine, but it's also a collection of artwork. It's a print bound together, if you will. And a lot of the time, that's the only way that some people have access to that much art at once. Consider it like a mobile gallery. So I think as artists inherently are creative, and you just kind of have to harness that energy that you have with your own work and want other people to see it. And if you don't want other people to see it, then you're probably not watching this. Or you're trying to get the confidence too, but really it's just all about having a little bit of balls. I don't know. Taking a risk and trusting yourself.
So I have a question. I know 2020 has been a challenge, right? For a huge host of reasons, COVID among many. For so many of us, I know you yourself have experienced additional challenges personally and professionally in your own life, which you don't necessarily have to share about, but I just wonder how 2020, how COVID, how this year has affected your work, affected your vision for the future, both of Curious Publishing and your own professional practice as well.
Sure. So pretty much like in the beginning of the year is when all of the lockdown stuff started to happen, right? It was in March. So we weren't really much into the year, especially after the holidays. I do work in retail, so we were still coming off of that exhaustion from doing holiday stuff. And I had this big issue planned with Latinx, and we did get to do that event. It was actually also right before everything was shut down. So luckily it didn't affect that, but when I had to start canceling smaller book launches and considering that I would have to not have a launch event, it scared like the crap out of me. I was just like, I don't get it. Like, this was my format. In-person stuff was my format. So it took obviously psychologically, it was devastating. I honestly was like, I don't understand how I'm going to be able to even print another magazine if I can't have that in-person reach. I don't understand much. Like, I did have an online store, but I wasn't shipping hundreds of packages at a time. So the volume aspect was scary to me. And then I'm totally willing to talk about the house fire that happened at my house in June, which was accidental. I was living with a couple of artist friends, and we lived in one of those really old houses in Lincoln Park in Pomona, and there was a fire, and it totally destroyed our personal belongings, injured one of my roommates, and of course, I'm a small business, like all of Curious Publishing's property was burned to the ground. The stuff that was salvageable, it wasn't really salvageable because it was either wet or covered in soot. And that's, I think I estimated around like a $5,000 retail value and a just over $1,700 print value of our items, which were just totally gone. So we had to totally just close our store for a whole month, and we lost money, of course. But I think that I kind of, I mean, I know I have a supportive community, but I think I underestimated how supportive that they would be. And we immediately started getting donations on our GoFundMe, which put me back on my feet personally. And then we had a separate GoFundMe that was for Curious Publishing. Our printer, Spin Print out in Lake Forest that we work with, totally replenished our books without charging us, which was just huge. It was hundreds of books. They really did not have to do that, but I just simply emailed them and said, everything burned down, I'm safe, and I need to reorder my books. Because I did have a little bit of money that was donated, which I could use to get the store back up and running, but they did it with no questions asked. And we also had the auction, which was donated artwork, and people could bid online, and we made probably, after the auction and after all the donations, we were able to replenish everything that we lost within a matter of 2 months, which was a huge turnaround. I even landed on my feet personally and was able to find a home with an artist friend, and colleague, like really local too. I only moved from Pomona to Upland. So all of the community that I gained through Curious Publishing is the only reason why I have a roof over my head and my company didn't totally fail after the fire. So of course, those things are traumatic, personally for me. I almost totally stopped my personal artwork after that because all of that original artwork did get destroyed as well. So that's been hard to deal with. Just not having those, those cherished drawings that you spent all this time on, but it also has taught me of such a valuable lesson of just not holding on to things so preciously and really seizing the moment, and also just being well prepared and switching to digital. I mean, like we have all our files for our Curious that survived because I happened to save my computer and my external hard drive. That's basically all I ran out of the house with was my phone, my purse, my passport, and my computer. And that's why Curious is probably doing okay, other than the support that I got. So hopefully that answers your question.
What an amazing example of mutual aid and, a community coming to the aid of someone who's really important to them. So I'm so sorry you went through that, but it's a beautiful story in the end. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So I had a question too about your own personal work. I know you didn't, that wasn't the focus today, but I think we saw little hints of it in your presentation, right? It's very personal, very confessional. And so, I think you kind of talked about that, about having bravery. I just wonder if you have any advice for young artists who are a little trepidatious, right, about sharing work that is of a personal nature or a political nature or something that is controversial, right?
Sure. So I do draw nudity, both female and male. And honestly, the first time I ever drew a fully nude male drawing, it freaked even me out, even though I'm used to seeing that kind of body, and it was in private, and it was like, oh no, like I drew a penis. Like, do I show anyone? That kind of thing. So I think being nervous about sharing the body or sharing deep thoughts, that's totally healthy and normal. No one really wants to be totally exposed unless you're that kind of performance artist. Then that's amazing. I want to meet you. But even I don't really love putting myself out there, but it's just important to me to give little peeks into my identity because it's really what drives my art. And I think that just trusting in yourself and making sure that you're not, exposing a part of yourself you're not comfortable with, and trusting that other people do have empathy and want to relate, and just knowing that there are allies out there and there's the right community. There's an audience for almost any type of art, I believe, and it's just a matter of finding that community and thriving in it.
I have another question and kind of a comment. First of all, I just want to say I'm sorry to hear about your loss this summer. I know I don't need to dwell on it, but it's terrible news, and I'm glad you bounced back. So maybe kind of going off of that a little bit, I wanted to ask you about maybe the importance of networking as a working professional, just in the business sense in the art world. Obviously, that networking and that sort of social environment that you've created helped you a lot. Is there anything you can talk about and how you build that?
Sure. So I know a lot of people in my age category just like loathe the word networking. They just hate it. Like networking, that sounds lame, sounds salesy, sounds ingenuine. You don't have to call it networking, just call it building a community. It's the same thing, whether you're in sales or you're in the art sector. So, you know, art as it is, as a form of entertainment or indulging, it doesn't exist without a network of people that are interested and excited to share those words or pictures or what have you. So as an artist, I really don't think that, like, without my, I don't really know how to put it. So, you know, obviously my friends were my first patrons, so I do want to put that out, that that's totally normal. But those friends will tell their friends, and then when you put your work out there, even if it's just like in the magazine, don't mean to plug it, like I've already been plugging it, but you're gonna have those opportunities where people that wouldn't have seen your work will see it, and just expanding your bandwidth is statistically and just going to have more eyes on your work. So I think that it's always important to not always be having tunnel vision about your work, not only focusing on your one captive audience, but expanding your captive audience. That's inevitably going to be ever changing. So good ways to network. I think right now Instagram is the hugest way for artists to network. Just reposting, commenting on things, collaborating in group projects is huge. Group shows, even if they're just virtual right now. Applying to different compilation magazines other than Curious, you know, there's a ton of opportunities out there. And then also just keeping an open line of communication to your allies, and just being if that's your personality, being the kind of person that can take feedback and collaborate and make bigger ideas come to fruition. Because even though I do take a lot on with Curious, it wouldn't be happening if I didn't have my crew, you know, my networking crew.
Great. Louis, do you have a question?
There you go.
Audience question.
Morning, statements and one second. I just want to talk about what she talked about. She said so many beautiful things. She said so many beautiful things like small business owner, and I mean, not like I wrote it down, but like I mean, I think it's amazing what she does. That she small business owner, what she's doing, and here's I don't know, I wrote it down, but like non-profit, help people, and trusting yourself. Because my grandfather was a small business owner, and she helps people, and she helps people. I'm in my grandfather's room right now, and I'm crying right now because, I mean, just like everything that she said was like, it's beautiful because she wants to help people and put stuff out there, and like I don't know, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Everything
Yeah,
I said,
thank you.
I don't repeat word for word, but like, and the thing that with Takata too, because I'm gonna be, she's a sociology major, and I'm gonna play sociology later to be my be a therapist. And that's on my height too, so.
Cool.
But I think, I mean, because as a small business owner, that's not easy. Um, I mean, I could go to therapy in school because my grandfather, he started a small business, and that's why I'm able to do things I can do because of him. And I just see so much motivation from her, and that's what I see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. Rebecca, I have a question. I think it's so amazing that through COVID, you haven't seen a decrease in sales and outreach. I mean, bravo to you. That's incredible. So so sort of going through this experience and seeing the fact that, you're still building community, you're still making sales, your outreach is still working. Has it reframed your vision for future events and programs and outreach?
Oh, absolutely. So it's made me realize that, even in a pandemic, there's an audience that wants art. They want to see their friends' art. They want to see their peers and what they're doing. That want hasn't gone away. I think it's actually gone up. Especially, not only as a form of escape, but also just as a form of support. There's a lot of people that financially aren't doing well right now. So they're really hitting hard with the DIY, making their own prints, opening up their online store, which they previously had no time to do. I think that in the future, what I'm going to realize is to take it a little more easy and not put so much pressure on myself to present these things in person, since now I know that it totally translates virtually and through delivery. And you really don't know what to expect, what's going to come next. So I anticipate there's going to be another change when the market opens back up. Like, how are those in-person events going to look? Probably not going to be as crowded. It's all things that I'm just constantly going to have to adjust to. So I will say that owning a small business, you really can't expect the same thing to always happen, especially if you're in the creative field. You have to be willing to change with the trends and the laws, honestly. So
John shared something in the chat. John, do you want to?
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Yes, it's been awesome working with a fiscal sponsor. I mean, they basically do all of my back-end accounting paperwork. And they do this for other small art businesses, not just mine, but I was their first project, so I feel lucky in that.
That's great. So you mentioned your day job, and I know that can be a real challenge. And you've also talked about, taking it easy on yourself and changing your expectations. And so you've got your personal practice, you've got the business, you've got your day job. Like, that's a lot going on.
Yeah,
I hate the word balance, but for lack of a better word, how do you find that balance?
yeah, the truth is it's not very balanced right now. I'm working myself hard, probably the hardest I've ever worked myself. And I think that that's just because my lifestyle has changed since I lost my possessions. Like, obviously that's going to take a lot of adjusting. And I think most people would have put their company on hold for a little while, but I really didn't want to risk Curious being forgotten. I'd worked so hard that was my baby and my priority. I don't have any kids and I'm not married. That was like my main priority. So I consider it like I'm married to my company or something. Yeah, so my next thing that I'm going to do for myself and for the company is take that risk and actually step back from taking on as many hours for my day job as soon as I can. I'm already in the strategy process of starting to build a salary for myself. There's the money. I know that the money is there, but I simply have never taken a paycheck from my company because I want that to build up as much as I can before I start living off of it and being able to pay my staff in a fair manner. So I'm hoping as soon as next year, Curious will be not only my nonprofit book company, but also my career. So it's scary, you have to take that risk and just trust that the sales will keep coming and that you'll still be interested in this work, even though you're doing more hours of it. but I'm not too scared about the interest part. It's art books and books in general are my passion. I love doing the layout and design, and I'm really excited to make that transition soon. I'm young right now, and I'm able to do a day job and then do a little bit of editing on the side. My desk job does have a lot of downtime, so I've been lucky that way that I can like whip out my laptop or my iPad and do double duty. But I'm getting to the point where I want to put more focus in the company.
Okay, so I wanted to ask one final question. So what are you reading, watching, listening to, podcast, book, film, music, etc., that is just feeding you? And also, is there an artist or group of artists, I think I know the answer maybe, but whose work you'd like to amplify?
Yeah, absolutely. So to unwind, the things that I indulge in are surprisingly also art books. People would probably think that I would get tired of it, but it's truly my passion and I love doing it. So I recently have been trying to get into stuff that I'm not used to looking at, like maybe like skate culture photography in the UK. So I recently hit up a creator over there, and what's his name? It's called Futurist Pictures. So I've been indulging in Futurist Pictures zines.
Holds up the copy of the zine.
They're all film photography of skate culture. And when I was growing up in the high desert, we used to drive down to the Banff skate park in Ontario. So even though I was never great at skateboarding, I've always been really into the culture and watching skating and that kind of thing. So I do want to give them a shout out. I'm one of those people that binge watches stuff while I'm working. So I've just been like watching Cold Case Files, to be honest. It's just like, oh, and then what? I feel like it just like gets my mind jogging. Like all of a sudden there'll be something that happens. And I'm like, oh yeah. So it'll like keep me up and like sharp while I'm editing. But I also I listen and follow to this podcast called Here Be Monsters. I think it's through NPR, but it is an independent project, and they do a summer art exchange globally. So every year they have artists send in their work. They have artists submit an artwork, virtually through email, and then they'll pair you up with someone else that has a similar interest, and you'll basically mail your art to each other. So every year I receive art from someone that I've never met, and you can put in your preferences, like, do you want zines? Do you want a sculpture? Do you want a painting? Do you want a letter? One time I got a 5-page short story handwritten from Cornell University student. And then this year I got a zine from someone in Arkansas. So you really never know what you're gonna get with that. And they focus on offbeat topics. They usually focus on kind of like metaphysical topics, just anything that you wouldn't really see normally in podcasting, it's not very traditional. It's a very loose form. They heavily rely on indie musicians and sound engineers to like make the experience a little more ASMR. So I'm into that stuff too. There's this new art book store opening in downtown Upland called Curated Chronicles. A friend of mine, Melanie Walden, will be opening that in October. So you can actually follow her Instagram to see the update on the opening of that store. Super excited about it. She's one of our wholesale accounts, so she's definitely familiar with our work. She'll be carrying our stuff, and she's totally refurbished this building and has murals being installed right now, so I'm really excited about that store. And Artlands over in Redlands, also a friend of mine, Daniel, similar store, but they also have an art gallery, and that's in downtown Redlands, and walking distance between all the shops and stuff.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. It was wonderful to hear about your
I see my note from my mom. Thank you, Mom.
Very sweet.
My mom just graduated from Chaffey College, so.
Oh, congrats.
Congrats.
Bravo. Wonderful.
Thank you.
So I think Roman's going to close us out and give us a few reminders. But again, please join me in thanking Rebecca for spending some time with us today. And thank you all for joining us as well.
Of course, we wanted to thank you for your participation and your support. And we also wanted to mention that we have a quick online survey that will help us evaluate our online programming as we plan our future programs. So that's the tiny URL that you see on the screen now, tinyurl.com/Wignall fall 20. We also would encourage you to visit our website, www.chafee.edu/Wignall. We also wanted to mention, if you're interested in learning more about native land acknowledgement, there are a couple websites on the screen that you can check out to get more information.
usdac.us, native-land.ca.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone. Stay well.
Logo, Chaffee College. Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art Home Edition. The outline of the house surrounds the title.